morning, dear students. Today we move to chapter 3, The Little Girl. The Little Girl is a small story written by Catherine Mansfield. She was born on 14th October 1888. She was a prominent modernist writer who was born and brought up in New Zealand. She wrote short stories and poetry under the pen name Catherine Mansfield. When she was 19, she left colonial New Zealand and settled in England, where she became a friend of D.H. Lawrence, Virginia Woolf, Lady Ottoline Morrell, and others in the orbit of the Bloomsbury Group. Mansfield was diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis in 1917, and she died in France when she was 34. Now let's move to the story. The title of the story refers to a main character that will come across, the little girl named Kezia. The theme of the story is the relationship between children and their parents, and the writer Catherine Mansfield wants to tell us that children share a very important bond of love with their parents. Although when the children are small and when they are young, they do not feel that their parents love them because their parents are strict and many of the actions of the parents seems unjustified. But as children grows up, they realize that all the acts done by their parents were beneficial for them. The parents were concerned for them, and beneath the strictness lies a heart full of love for the children. And this bond of love between parents and their children has been highlighted through this story. And now let us go to the story. Here, the little girl is the story of a little girl, Kezia, who misunderstood her father's strictness and usually remained scared of him. She kept a distance from him. Whenever he would be at home, she considered him as a big giant. She would often get nervous and shudder while talking to him. She longed for his love and affection like her neighbor Mr. MacDonald. In the story we read, the little girl always found mother reading and father stretched out on the sofa, his handkerchief on his face, his feet on one of the best cushions, sleeping soundly and snoring. She sat on a stool, gravely watched him until he woke and stretched. When he woke up, then he looked at her and said, "Don't snore so, Kezia. You look like a little brown owl." In these lines, Catherine explains how this little girl scared off her father. She would often look at the neighbors, the MacDonalds playing joyously in their lawn. Mr. MacDonald was such a good father and played so lovingly with his children. She wondered he might be a different sort of father. In the story, Catherine explains a small incident that happened in the life of that little girl. Once she was kept indoors as she was affected by cold. Her grandmother suggested that she make a gift for her father's birthday next week. They decided that Kezia would make a pincushion for him. Kezia made a beautiful pincushion, but she accidentally made a mistake. She filled it with bits of paper that she got by tearing her father's important speeches. She was punished for that. This incident further estranged Kezia from her father. Once her mother fell ill and was hospitalized. She was left alone at home under the care of the cook. At night, she had a nightmare and woke up screaming. She found her father standing by her beside. He picked and tucked her up, then took her to his bed and soon fell asleep. Kezia felt secure lying near her father. She realized that her father was not as big as a giant. She felt the beating of her father's loving, large heart. Finally, she realized her father was very loving and had a generous heart. Okay, dear students, here this chapter ends. While reading this chapter, you can come to know more about this story. There are lots of phrases and sentences given in the story, and you can come to know about the story more deeper as Catherine explains in the story. Dear students, this story about a little girl whose feelings for her father change from fear to understanding will probably find an echo in every home. Now, what do you mean by will probably find an echo in every home? This means that all the children will feel in the same way. So, you all can relate to the feeling of little girl Kezia. Just like Kezia is full of fear towards her father in the beginning, and later on she understands his behavior and feels that he was concerned and he loved her.